Hello everyone. In the previous session, we saw about creating a class, and we have defined some attributes. Okay, so a class uh, is a special type where we can store related or common attributes. Like for an employee, if you take an employee, so what are all the attributes that we can keep in an like we can keep. Okay, so. So in this session, we will try to see how we can create like it in Java we call it as object. Okay, an object is a instance of a class. Okay, an object is an instance of a class and it can hold the values of that class, like that object. Suppose okay, let's take Excel. Okay, okay, what we are doing, we have a table like in general, like in real time. Suppose in a college, so we have a table where we, like in general, no need of any college or something. Suppose we are using Excel tool. Okay. Now here, what we are doing, roll number, and then our name, age, okay, date of birth, address, mobile number. So what else we are keeping in a student? Yeah, mobile address. Okay, that should be okay. Let's delete this. So this is nothing but like by seeing the header, you will understand these are all the attributes that will hold this table. Okay. So similar manner, a class defines the attributes that particular type holds, or like we want to keep these values for this type. So the header is nothing but a class structure, and each record like one. So XYZ. Okay. For now, I'm just uh, so mobile number, so some random number. So date of birth, okay, let's give some correct value. Let's say like this, okay, or okay, some random value. Okay, this is one record, one record of this table. Okay, by seeing these values, you will understand this is roll number, name, age, like that. So similarly, in Java also, I mean, like this is a type, a class or a type of an object, like a student. This is a blueprint of that object. Now, okay, we have this student. Okay, now what we want to do for this student, we want to create, we want to have one instance for this class. That is object one, student one object. So what we want to keep? We want to keep okay, ID, same values. Okay, let's go here. So these are the values it will hold. Okay. So this internally represents ID. Okay. When you say, I mean, this is just for example, like that we can have multiple students. We want to have multiple instances. We call it as instance, or yeah, mainly we call it as instance of a class, or for this type we are creating one more variable. In other words, for example, here if you say array and a type log, like integer, like okay. So we are creating another variable for this class, or like object, in other words, like, so we are creating second object that will hold second student. Okay, something like this. So like that we can have n number of students. Every time we no need to define ID, name, ID1, ID2, ID3, name 1, name 2, name 3, age 1, age 2. Like that we no need to define. So we are referring the student and we are like creating one object. Okay. Okay. So that's fine. We will do the same using our program. Okay. So let's say, so main is also another method. Okay. So we can have main also one of the method we can write within the class or even we can write outside the class. Okay, in this example we will take main method also within the class itself. Like there is no method or variable or anything that can't go out of the class. Okay, in Java everything should be within the class itself. Okay, okay. Now what we are going to do? We are going to do student is a type. Okay, kind of custom type we can say, and student1 equal to how we create a variable, like how we define array. uh, okay, a variable declaration, and here as in Java how we can create an object to uh, a class is like we by using new keyword. New, again the same type of, and we create a same type with open close. So this is nothing but constructor. Okay, so if you don't define any constructor, it will consider as a default constructor. Is by default it will create, the Java itself will create default constructor. Constructor is mainly used to create objects. Okay, so with the empty attributes, like without any values, it will just define. Okay, so even if you don't define this, it will define automatically the Java. So the syntax of this is called, this is not a method, this is a constructor. Okay, a constructor syntax is there will not be any return type to the constructor. Here we, any method should have a return type. Okay, that is the default. Suppose get name. So it will give a return type for this method is missing. So if a method is defined, then the return type is must. Whereas a constructor is nothing but a method with the same class name, same class name, and the scope is public. We will talk about it, but for now, like we are just so there will not be any arguments for that method. I mean here, and no return type. That is called a function. I mean that is called a constructor. Okay, we have created uh, an object for this student, one object. Okay, so now what we will do? We will put a, okay, let's say, okay, okay, we will just put a debugger here. Okay, now let's run this. Okay, we will get a debug point here. So you can see here, like here you can see student. So we have a student object created from this class, and you can see the same attributes are assigned to this instance or object. Using new constructor, we are creating object for this type. Okay, this will have a specific like assignment, or like it will have its own space. Okay, we will yeah, we'll try to understand more. Okay, how internally the Java understands the class and its attributes and values. Okay, so here yeah, these are all the default values. If you don't give any value to a string, it will treat as a, like by default null. For integers it is 0. Okay, let's continue. So you can say it is printing, but Java will have for every object there will be something called hash code, or like its own class representation. To identify that class, there will be the address of a class, we can say. This is the address of for each variable or data type. We'll have address in memory, something like that. In Java also we have. Okay, and so JVM, JVM is a tool, or like Java Virtual Machine. So JVM is responsible to run the program, like uh, yeah, it will understand and it will run the program. So okay, we know. Okay, paint. Let's take paint. We know how array represented in memory, how a variable is represented, like how the location or uh, the memory allocation for a variable and for array, how it happens. Similarly, there is something called heap memory. Okay, and also let's take this is one, two. We call this as object. Okay, okay, okay. So this is heap memory. Memory also divided into multiple parts, and so one of the thing is heap memory. So this is there is something called RAM, registries, heap memory. So like that there is things, and in Java JVM also maintains some memory. So allocation, and that there is something called heap memory. Okay, so in that heap memory, it will keep references to each object. Okay, now, so there is, this is of type student. Okay, let's say this is also a student of type. This is the class name or a type we are talking. And then what is there? Like ID. So when you create a object, I mean when you create an object to a type, it will assign the values. Okay. By default, this is one of the value type, that is null. Okay. Age is integer, so by default is 0. Mobile is a string, so by default null. And then address. Address is also by default null. Okay. So similarly, we will have we are just taking this and pasting here. Okay, whenever you create an object, so that by default it will have these values, and this reference. So this reference goes here. So here it will maintain the reference in the heap memory. Okay. So JVM, like Java memory management. So here heap memory, it will keep references to those objects, and also the yeah. Okay. Okay. So that is how it is. So even here we have created an object. student class. Okay, so we are telling Java like this is my custom type or a class student, and this student has these attributes and no methods as of now. Okay, and then when you create an object to that class, then it will assign some values to those values. If it is a class, simply it doesn't have any values. When it convert, like when we create an object, then only the values will be assigned, and that is how it is. And now what we will do, we will create one more student 2. Now similarly we are creating default template. Okay, default student template it will take, and then it will create object. Okay, now if you print, the reference will be different because each class will have each object will have its own reference. You can see this is a different reference. Okay, now what we can do, this is how we can print the values. Okay, I mean not print, like how we can create the objects. Okay, now what we will do, we will, there is how we can access these values using this type. So now student dot id equal to, suppose if you say 1. Okay, so now if you do print, still it is printing this. So what we can do, there is something called a toString. I mean, this is default method, it will get called. Now what we are just doing, we are overriding the value. Okay, so here what we will do, we will print a string. Okay, id colon plus id. So we are taking same class variable and assigning here value. Okay, like that we can even generate the class. Okay, for now I'm using the default, like Eclipse provides ways to do generate toString. Okay, we can select all the attributes and generate. Okay, so you can see, so this is nothing but a string. We are building our own custom formatting, like uh, output formatting, and here we are printing the same values. I mean id, name, age. We are just formatting the response. Okay, let's print this. So you can see now when you say println, it will call the toString method by default. So that is how Java. I mean, even if you take a string also, there will be toString must have been overridden. Okay, these are the default methods present. So this is a default method that present. Like the Java JVM understands how it recognizes the main method. There will be toString also. It will be recognized by default. So you can see override. Override means there is already, we are just overriding that method. So you can see we have two instances of student. One is with ID value we have set. This is how we can set the value. So when you access dot ID equal to, that means it consider as a variable accessing, and this will be the value we are setting. Similarly, if you say, so how we access array using index. So similarly, we are doing with the name directly with the attribute name or the variable name. Okay. So when you say print, so this will act as a value of this ID. Okay. So let's run this. You can see one is printed. Okay, like that we can print name also. It will print null. Okay, it will print null because there is no value for this name. Okay, so let's try to assign remaining values also. So this is one way of assigning values. We will see different ways how we can set values, access values. Okay, so name, age. So name, you see, so we have defined name as a string, and if you assign some different value, it will give error because type mismatch. So we have to give a proper name. Okay, and the age is an integer, and okay, for now we will just give those attributes. Okay, and now let's run this again. You can see whatever values we have set, these are not applied to another object. So that is where this the reference comes into picture. Reference, and also, yeah, mainly when you create an object with the same attributes and methods, a separate object will be created, and that will be referenced with the variable that we have given, the class name, like with the corresponding object name. Similarly, we have created student 2. It is still doesn't have any values, and here we have values. So that's why when you access that, we are able to get values for this student, but students 2 still doesn't have any values. And similarly, we can just put values for student 2 also. And okay, so, so this is how you can see. So this is more readable, more friendly, more it's good concept here. So anyone can easily understand this is the class type. So these are all the attributes of that type. Here student have these attributes, and this is the constructor. This is default constructor. Even if you don't write, it will the Java itself assumes there is default constructor. And to print, generally we can use system.out.println, but so class is a special type of the in order to print an object, we should print like we can print using directly student.id. Inside a class, you no need to use any reference like object dot something. So within that object, within that class, those variables are like available. Okay. So like that, we have created one object for this student using new and class name with the parentheses name. This is the constructor we are calling. Using constructor, using new keyword, we can create object to that class. Okay, and this is the way we can set the values, and this is how we can print the object. Okay, so unlike for loop, we no need to write any complex logic to print. Either we can override this toString method, or we can simply access each value like student.id. We can take this complete, okay, and we can put here instead of id. Here id is not a local variable, okay, so that's why we have to use object dot variable name. So that way we can we are telling get the value from this object. So that's what we are doing here. Okay. Yeah, something like this. So we are printing it. Fine. So there will not be any difference in the response. You can say there is no difference, even with the toString or even with the normal customized printing. So here we are taking each object and then the value. Here, when you say toString of this internally refers the object, and this toString also is available. Okay, let's say we can directly call toString also. I mean, so that is how it is. So let's print again. So you can see it is printing the same. You are calling toString of this method because an instance of an object can hold methods also. Okay. Yeah. So that is how it is. So in this session, we saw how to create an uh, ob how to create an instance to a class or object to a class we can call in any ways, and how we can set values to that object and how we can print the values. Okay, and so similar to table, we can have multiple records or multiple objects we can create, and in the memory or like how these are understood by Java, JVM, or like okay. So each class object will have its own like its own space, or like it will be okay, and these are referenced using those variables. Okay, this is how it works. Okay, in the next session we will go a little more understanding like what are the different ways. So there is another way to create, like we know when you declare a variable, you can declare that variable, along with that we can give values. So similarly, at the time of object creation itself, we will try to give values to that object. Okay, in the next session.